Oilers and Kings all tied at a game apiece, getting set for game 3 tonight in Los Angeles. With that in mind, here's Ryan Rishaug to tee it all up. Shogger, you got to help me to understand this. This Edmonton Oilers team this year has been Jekyll and Hyde when it comes to home and away this year. Third best home record in the entire NHL, but on the road, only the 12th best. Is this just a matter of getting stuck with some tough line matchups when the home team gets last change? Or why is there such a disparity?
Yeah, it's a good question, Gino. And we've kind of questioned McDavid and Draisaitl a little bit about it along the way here. And Connor sort of always shook his head and said, if I could put my finger on it, I would change it. It extends beyond just the record. I mean, the special teams, I believe there's a 13% difference in both the power play and the penalty kill when they're at home versus when they're on the road. They're just, for whatever reason, they've just been a lot more efficient on home ice. So, I mean, they're still an okay team away, but they've been a fantastic team on home ice. So that's what you battle all year long and get home ice advantage for. But I would submit to you, Gino, that the Oilers would not be happy if this ended up having to go 7 games to get past the LA Kings. So they got to sort out their road game for sure. And they'll get a chance here tonight. Sounds like Chris Knobloch's going to keep the lineup largely the same as it was in game number 2. No significant changes based on their morning skate from what we hear. So they're going to re-rack it and hope for better results tonight, I'm sure, with some tweaks.
Stuart Skinner was a big story in the playoffs last year. He's a big story, obviously, again, for the Edmonton Oilers this year. Last year, an .883 save percentage through his 12 starts. And we all stood back and said, you know what? If only they had better goaltending, who knows what they could have done. Skinner's save percentage, and it's just 2 games so far, .857. Significantly worse than he was in last year's playoffs. I understand he's got good composure and good demeanor, but there's got to be some concern so far right now from what you've seen from Skinner.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, the numbers are not pretty, right? And I guess the one thing I would say, Gino, is that there were a couple of goals late in that first game that I think were just kind of crazy bounce. I was okay with the fact that they were talking about bad bounces after game 1 because I thought there were some. Maybe a little bit in game 2, but not nearly as much in game 2. So when you get down to it and you start picking the goals apart, for sure, there are a number of goals that he's going to want back. If the Edmonton Oilers are going to get to where they want to go, Stuart Skinner, you could argue, is going to have to be in the conversation for the Conn Smythe. Because it's not like they have this unbelievable blue line that they can insulate him with. That's not the way this team is set up, right? This blue line, a lot of it is done by committee. Defending this year, they have shown throughout the season that they can do it consistently, but to get deep into the playoffs with this group, Skinner is going to have to bite a huge piece of the workload off. And so the points you're making are more than fair. And we will find out tonight because they're going to need a big performance from Stuart Skinner. And if they don't get a solid performance from Skinner tonight, Gino, if this goes the wrong way, I think it opens the door to the conversation about Calvin Pickard for sure, because Pickard's numbers have been off the charts. But let's see what Skinner gives him tonight and if he can adjust the narrative here.
Speaking of D, the LA Kings had the 3rd best defensive team in the entire NHL through the regular season. They looked brutal in game number 1. The Oilers' offense just ran roughshod over them. Significantly different in game 2, yet not, I wouldn't say they played great D. What is it the Oilers are doing that are knocking the Kings' defensive strategies off kilter right now?
Yeah, so I think the Kings feel they did a much better job in game 2. I think it was very different from game 1 to game 2. So when it was working for the Oilers, I thought the Oilers did a really good job of just transporting the puck up through the middle of the ice and dumping it in when they had to, establishing a forecheck. The 1-3-1 wasn't working very well in game number 1. And I think the Kings were the first ones to admit that. I think it's all about carrying the puck with confidence and making a smart play at the red line. And the Oilers have some players that have the ability to do that. They like to clog it up. They like to try and force you to dump it in. And I think the Oilers aren't afraid to do that when they have to. But they're also timing their forecheck well to get in on that lone defenseman that's back. So they know how to pick apart this 1-3-1. They did it in game 1. Not so much in game 2. I mean, look at the way the series started, Gino. In the first, I think, 4 minutes of the game, Mikey Anderson got turned inside out by Leon Draisaitl. He managed to save himself with a great defensive play. And then McDavid with that spinorama move. I mean, the Oilers have dynamic forwards, and these defensemen are having to figure out a way to handle them. But I'll tell you what, if you look at some of the numbers, they've done a decent job analytically, shot suppression-wise, especially in Game 2, and especially against the Draisaitl line. Gino Draisaitl mentioning today that his line's getting a little bit dinged up, and he knows that they need to get on that.
It's the playoffs. People get dinged up. Speaking of getting dinged up, I want to go back to Evander Kane. Here's a guy before the start of the playoffs. Guys never talk about injuries, and he comes out and goes, yeah, I'm dealing with a sports hernia injury. It's slowing me down. Is it just me, or does he not look like he's slowed down? He's played almost 16 minutes a game, and he's being physical out there. What are you seeing from Evander Kane so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's played well. I think he was a big part of the momentum swing last game that allowed the Oilers to get back into it. Not necessarily on the scoreboard, but he had a couple of shifts before Dylan Holloway's big goal where that line got out there and really got physical. Kane was nasty out there. He was finishing checks. They had some nice offensive zone time. He's got a bit of a snarl on right now. More than anything, Gino, I think he's skating well. So I've never had a sports hernia. I imagine it's not great to try and skate through, but whatever's happening, he's able to. And when Evander Kane can skate, he can get there. And when he shows up in a bad mood, he can throw body checks. And what we're seeing is Evander Kane skating well enough to be physical. And though they aren't putting a lot of offense up, that is allowing them to shift some momentum here and there. I think it's just a matter of time before he breaks through. And I'll be honest with you, Gino, if the Oilers don't win this game tonight and have to make some changes, I think he's a prime candidate to get bumped up the lineup. And I've long maintained that for the Oilers to win a Stanley Cup or get to a Stanley Cup final, Evander Kane needs to be playing a big role in their top six. He's on the third line right now, but if he keeps playing like this and keeps pushing, he may be able to bull his way into that spot.
Speaking of guys who probably have a snarl on right now, there's nothing wrong with McDavid. He just went 2 games without scoring. You've known this guy from day one when he stepped into the NHL. Here's a guy that historically has had a tremendous amount of success against the LA Kings. 7 goals, 30 points in just 15 playoff games against the Kings. Are you anticipating, much like I am, the fact that at any given moment, this guy's going to just explode offensively in this series?
Yeah, I think he's capable of it. We've seen it. He looks for moments to do it. A pivotal Game 3 on the road would certainly qualify as one of those moments. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if it was a big night from Conor McDavid. I mean, he rattled off, quite a few assists in that first game. It was a pretty big night for him in that first game and a win. So I would say in terms of huge performances, he's 1 for 2 so far in this series. I don't think he's been held off the score sheet or kept that quiet. Now, I know you're referring to goal scoring because that's what matters here in the playoffs, and I think that's more than fair. Let's see how much he shoots the puck. I'm just checking his stats right now. Shots. He's got 4 shots in the 2 games so far. That's probably not enough. Probably want more than that from a guy that has the puck as much as he does, Gino. So, yeah, I agree. It could be one of those moments for McDavid tonight, but it's up to Gavrikov, Doughty, and company to try and suppress that tonight. And they have shown at times they're able to do it.
You know who's happy that McDavid's not shooting so much on net is Zack Hyman, because when he's not shooting, he's setting up Hyman, and Hyman's being a rock star.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. For sure. Hyman's been a benefactor all year long. Like, McDavid's passing prowess this year has really been something. And we all saw him the way he scored goals last year. It was crazy. Just kind of decided he was going to be a 60-goal scorer, so he did it. This year, Zack Hyman's been a huge benefactor. Hyman's been so good for this team all year long. They'll look for a big game from him tonight, too. McDavid and Hyman, they've got Henrique on that line, so we'll see. But quite frankly, Gino, I'm paying more attention to Leon Draisaitl and Warren Foegele and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins because they need to do more to swing this series than they have so far at even strength in the first couple of games.
Looking forward to it. Kings and Oilers all even at a game apiece. Game 3 tonight in Los Angeles. Thanks for this, Ryan. Enjoy the game.